My name's Matt Stockdale. I am an attorney, an adjunct professor, and a volunteer lay pastor. 3 jobs listed in order of their pay, but not in the order of their importance. I'm going to finish what Michael started. All those churches that we need to plant, we need volunteer lay pastors to help. Let me tell you how I became a volunteer lay pastor. As a criminal defense attorney, owning my own law firm, making really good money, working 80 hours a week. Yeah, I don't make that money anymore. Working 80 hours a week, self-proclaimed workaholic. But the Holy Spirit kept telling me to plant a church, and I fought the Holy Spirit. I said, I don't have the time. I'm working 80 hours a week. How am I supposed to plant a church? The Holy Spirit kept working, as the Holy Spirit does. I shut my law firm down, took a job as an assistant district attorney. Now I'm prosecuting crime instead of defending crime. And with that extra time, it's only a 40-hour work week. With that extra 40 hours, I'm still a workaholic. I got to work on that, I know. With that extra 40 hours, plant a church. Met with 12 committed members. We had a core group that we ended up planting a church called Triad Adventist Fellowship in Greensboro, North Carolina. My wife is a saint. She allowed me to take about a 50% pay cut when I shut my law firm down. I'm now making a little bit more money than that now, but it took a while to get there. Being a volunteer lay pastor is hard work. It's challenging work. There's ups and downs, there's peaks and valleys. But what is a volunteer lay pastor? Took this straight from NAD's website. Ministry of Volunteer Lay Pastors is all about kingdom growth. It puts more hands on deck. Pastors alone cannot finish the mission. It facilitates the church planting movement within our division, since it is nearly impossible to plant the amount of churches needed with the present number of pastors. And it also provides financial flexibility, giving conferences the ability to place volunteer lay pastors in certain churches, preferably smaller ones, while allocating budgets for full-time pastors to areas where ministry of full-time pastors may be more needed and more effective. I don't get paid, so pastors can pastor other churches. That's the idea behind volunteer lay pastor and what it does. So let me talk about the ups and the downs. See, whenever I come to a conference, whether it's a continuing legal education or something for the church, whenever I go to a conference, you always hear the peaks, and you rarely hear about the valleys. I'm going to give you both today. I'm going to share the ups and the downs. So what are the good things about volunteer lay pastoring? When I'm able to bring my 2 jobs together. You see, this is the chief of police of the High Point Police Department that I work with their police department day in and day out. Most of the cases I handle are, quite frankly, homicides. In the past year and a half, I've prosecuted about 10 first-degree murder cases. I work with the police department day in and day out. One of the things that we have noticed in our area, and you heard Richie talk about this morning, the opioid epidemic. Heroin, now fentanyl, are killing people day in and day out in our communities. And I talked with the police department, and there's this, it's not a magic drug, maybe it is a magic drug, Narcan, which can immediately can undo the effects of an overdose. And I asked the police department, why don't you guys have this in your police cars? You guys are the first people on scene to a drug overdose. Why don't you have these drugs in each police car? Their answer was money. They didn't have it in their budget to have it. Now, the EMS had it. When EMS got there, they had that drug, but sometimes by the time EMS got there, it was too late. People were dead. And there was a short time period in the month of February that we had, is 2 years ago, month of February, we had 31 overdose deaths in a 2-week time period. Those people could have been saved with Narcan. So we applied for a grant, raised money among ourselves, and we provided enough money for the High Point Police Department to have Narcan in every single police car. Now, the people whose lives were saved, will they ever come to my church? Did they even know my church provided those funds? Probably not. But they have a second chance on life. They have a second chance to know that maybe one day, maybe they will find Jesus because they now are still alive rather than dead. One of the many things about my church that I absolutely love to do is to try and bring those two works together. Another thing, why is he showing us $1.20? See, when we planted our church, we said we want to impact our community. Everything about us, we want to impact the community. And our community, was number 2 in the nation in food insecurity. People didn't know where their meals were going to come from. We wanted to change that. We provide morning breakfast every Friday morning in a park in downtown Greensboro to the homeless. In another local city, we provide a meal at the local homeless shelter. We've done everything we can to counteract that homelessness and food insecurity. We have a local group of homeless individuals who know that we have lunch every single Saturday, and they will show up for lunch. Sometimes if I preach a little long, they'll catch the end of a message too. Not going to say I do that on purpose, but maybe sometimes. They come for the meal, even though they may not look like our members, may not smell like our members, may not dress like our members. Our members accept them and welcome them and make sure they never go hungry. All of the leftovers go with them. One day, one of those homeless individuals handed me $1.20. She said, I don't have much, but this is all I have. You have done so much to help us, to feed us. I just want to give a little something back. The widow's mite right there. That is what being a volunteer lay pastor is about. But the most important part is baptism. You see, I've told this story before. This is Joanna. Joanna had no background in the Adventist church. In fact, the only reason why she ever came to an Adventist church was because she was dating a guy who was an Adventist. And I can relate to that because I had never heard of the denomination before I met my wife. Another good reason for my wife. But Joanna started coming to church because of her boyfriend. Now, her boyfriend was also being physically abusive to her. Not all Adventists are good people. What she could have done, and I wouldn't have blamed her if she would have, she could have run away from the Adventist church because her only connection was an abusive boyfriend. But my church did the right thing. They embraced her. They didn't embrace the abusive boyfriend. They embraced her. And she became a part of our church, kept coming, kept learning, kept growing, started teaching a children's Sabbath school class, and I had the privilege of baptizing Joanna. That's the good. So what about the bad? What are the valleys of being a volunteer lay pastor? See, this one is a little bit of a hybrid because there's some good to it, but there's also some bad to it. Sandra also came to our church at a time when she was low, when she was homeless. She didn't have anywhere to go, and we helped to get her into housing. Eventually being baptized within our church, and even when a tornado came through Greensboro and ripped the roof off of her house, we helped her fix that house and helped her continue to get back onto her feet. The reason why it's a kind of a hybrid is this was her Facebook page when she had a massive heart attack and died. She changed her Facebook profile to say, "I love my church." Losing members is hard. Those of you who do it professionally, who get paid to do it, you know that. But for us volunteer lay pastors, it hits hard too. Losing someone who would give me a big hug every time I saw her is hard. Losing people, whether it be through death or through attrition. July 2014, very first week my church met. These are the 12 core group members that I planted this church with. Only 2 people in this picture are still in leadership at my church. Some of them, like Pastor Reed on the far left, is now sleeping with Jesus. Some have left the area, have moved out of the area. On the far right, seated on the edge of the chair, are Jack and Marcy Brown. I joke with Jack, he's my second favorite pastor. He tells me I'm his 4th favorite pastor, so I'm not sure what that means. But Jack is relocated. By the way, a shameless plug for Jack. He lives in the Portland area. He's looking for a job if anyone wants to. He has an MDiv if anyone wants to hire him. He's an amazing pastor. But Jack and Marcy live in this area. Some have moved away. Some have left the faith. Some have deconverted. Some may still be members, but they really aren't coming anymore. It's hard. 12 people that I planted a church with who I thought we were going to be together through eternity. And only 2 of us are left in leadership. It takes its toll. It makes you feel like maybe I should quit. Maybe I'm the reason that people have left. But I don't want to leave you on a sad note. So let me tell you just another story about Mia. Mia, again, had no background in the Adventist church. Mia only knew about the Adventist church through the son of some church members. Now, I knew their son existed, but I never saw him at church because he had an extreme social anxiety. He would watch church online, but he would never come to the church. And he was mentoring, discipling Mia, who lived in Louisiana, didn't even live in North Carolina. He was discipling her. We talked about a definition of a disciple. He never attended church, but he discipled Mia. Now, when COVID hit, Eddie Jr. died from COVID. Mia was still in Louisiana. She came to North Carolina, and Eddie Jr.'s family brought her in to their home as their daughter. Now, Mia was confined to a wheelchair. She made the decision to be baptized, but she was worried, how am I going to get into and out of the baptistry? She asked, could we do it privately, away from people, so it wouldn't be inconvenient for others? She wasn't thinking about herself. She was thinking about others. How would she get in and out? And what we told her, I reminded her of the story of the gentleman who helped the paralytic down through the roof. We had 2 young men who volunteered, one inside the baptistry, one outside. The young man outside the baptistry picked her up out of the wheelchair, handed her to the individual inside the baptistry. Then I had the privilege of baptizing her during a series done by Roger Hernandez. She was actually leading our social media during that series before she had ever joined the church. You see, being a volunteer lay pastor is tough. It's hard work. I'm an attorney. I'm an adjunct professor, and I'm a volunteer lay pastor. Listed in the order of salary, but not in the order of importance. Seeing somebody come up out of the water of baptistry, that is my most important job.